Okay, so here I'm attempting to, as clearly as possible, to show how the minor arcana, how the key unlocks from the Gospels into the minor arcana. Actually, what I'm trying to show is how the key to the tarot unlocks into the whole Bible, but I find it easier to begin with the New Testament. It seems like the initial key is there, and from there, the rest of the tarot unveils within the Old Testament. The theory is actually that the tarot was initially created by monks as a visual mnemonic device to remember how the Bible is structured and where passages are, with all kinds of symbolism and all kinds of archetypes hidden within each card. And each card represents many passages in the Bible. And there's different keys for different places in the Bible. Like the New Testament has certain keys that open up certain cards, and the Old Testament has others. But I find it is easier to begin with the New Testament because I think that's probably where it sprung up, how it starts, how the whole thing started from the New Testament, and from there, everything else unlocks. The mainstream no longer remembers what the tarot was originally for. Along the way, its original use was forgotten. It became an occult device where most Christians, or almost every Christian or Bible reading person today, thinks it's literally evil, but actually it is visual representation of the Bible. So here in this video, I'm attempting to explain how the tarot cards, how the keys unlock into the Gospels. The last videos were Revelation, where the 22 cards, the 22 tarot cards represent the 22 chapters of Revelation. And now the four Gospels, I'll show how the four suits of the minor arcana represent the four Gospels, each suit representing a certain Gospel. So as most people know, the Gospels mean the good news and cover mostly the ministry of Jesus, with some exceptions, some accounts of his youth and birth. But mostly it's the ministry of Jesus, and they're divided into 4 books, which offer 4 different perspectives, or 4 books that are offered to 4 different types of audiences, especially back in the day when they were written. So Matthew is known mostly as a book that was written for the Jews of the time, and here in this book, Jesus is shown mostly as the King of the Jews. In the Gospel of Mark, Jesus is seen mostly as the Son of God who suffers for mankind. So he's a suffering servant. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus is presented as a savior for all the people, not just the Jews, but all of mankind, the whole world. And in the Gospel of John, Jesus is seen as God, or God incarnate, God as flesh. For well over 1,000 years now, probably since the mid-first millennium, the 4 Gospels were attributed to the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac according to the specific order that's given in the book of Ezekiel in the Old Testament, in his vision of a being with 4 faces. And the order is the face of a man, which is Aquarius, the sign of Aquarius, the face of a lion, which is the sign of Leo, the face of an ox, which is Taurus, and the face of an eagle. And back in those days, the eagle, the sign of Scorpio, was shown as an eagle back in the ancient days. Traditionally, they overlaid the order of the Gospels with the order of the faces in Ezekiel. So they correlated the book of Matthew with Aquarius, Mark to Leo, Luke to Taurus, and John to Scorpio, or the eagle. And in the zodiacal wheel, that order is an order of oppositions where the first and the second sign are opposed to each other in the wheel, and the third and the fourth are opposed to each other. And they're also opposed in meaning in that Leo is royal, whereas Aquarius is a sign traditionally of the common people. And Taurus is a sign of service, as the ox is in service to man, whereas the eagle is a sign of the divine. Each of these signs are attributed to a specific element. Leo being fire, Aquarius being air, Taurus being earth, and Scorpio or the eagle being water. But these correlations between the signs, these traditional correlations between the signs and the Gospels, don't match in what they represent symbolically. Where it does match, however, is where the four Gospels do match within a certain order of these signs is in the book of Revelation. In Revelation 4, and both are in the New Testament. So in Revelation 4:7, that order is lion, calf, man, and eagle is the order of the four beasts in Revelation 4:7, which is a different order given to Ezekiel. To unlock the keys of the minor arcana, we're going to follow the order of Revelation 4:7. So here Matthew would be correlated to Leo, the fire sign, Mark to Taurus, the earth sign, Luke to Aquarius, the air sign, and John to Scorpio, the water sign. This specific order in Revelation 4:7 creates a movement that goes backwards through the zodiac, which is the motion of the precession of the equinoxes. The very slow backward movement through the zodiacal constellations that occur every 26,000 years. So it takes 26,000 years to make a complete loop. And this is something we're going to be talking more about in future videos. It's something that's very interesting and that is contained within the Bible, but subtly. Once you have the ears to hear and the eyes to see, you will see that the precession of the equinoxes are very present in the Bible. But you have to see it a certain way in order for it to be there. But once you recognize it, you cannot unsee it anymore. The first gospel, the Gospel of Matthew, is equated with Leo. And the Gospel of Matthew focuses greatly on the kingdom of heaven and Jesus as the King of Jews. Then the lion, Leo, the lion, is known as the ruler of the kingdom, the king of his kingdom. Matthew also has a very Old Testament approach. He's the first book in the New Testament, and he's sort of a bridge between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And he's very Old Testament-esque in his approach to Jesus. He uses a lot of Old Testament scriptural references and a lot of Judaic. And so the kingdom of Judah is also the emblem of Judah in the Old Testament the emblem is the lion itself. With Matthew, Jesus is presented as the fulfillment of the Old Testament. Matthew starts off in his style as very Old Testament, but with things like Jesus saying to his disciples, go only into the land of Israel to preach, don't go out to the Gentiles only. With the people of Israel, which is related to the kingdom, which is related to Judah and the lion. But he ends the gospel after the resurrection with Jesus saying, go preach to the whole world now. Go preach to the Gentiles. Also, Matthew himself, before he became a disciple, was a tax collector. And this is a person who works for the enrichment of the king. The second gospel, Mark, is equated with Taurus, and here Jesus is presented as a suffering servant, the Son of Man who has come not to be served but to serve, which is the purpose of an ox, is to serve man. Taurus is an earth sign and very much in service to the higher levels, other higher elements. In the Gospel of Mark, we see a Roman soldier at the foot of the cross who says, after Jesus has died, who says, surely this was the Son of God. And symbolically, Rome is the earthly kingdom. Also, Mark himself as a writer was known for collecting information from the disciple Peter, who became the first pope. The pope himself is the representative of Christ on earth. In the third gospel, the Gospel of Luke, Luke is equated with Aquarius. Here Jesus preaches to the outcasts and the poor, while continuously challenging the rulers, challenging those in power, which is a very Aquarius trademark. Aquarius is the most out of the box of all the zodiac signs and is the most rebellious also, and the most empathic towards the people. In this gospel, outcasts are welcome in the kingdom. And also in this gospel, it's all about what one chooses to believe, not about one's ancestry or bloodline, which is also very much Aquarius related. Aquarius being the opposite of Leo, it has the opposite tendency. We see examples of this in the gospel with, for example, Zacharias, the father of John the Baptist, who chooses not to believe and pays the price for it, versus Mary, who chooses to believe and is rewarded. Another example would be doubting Thomas, who chooses not to believe Jesus' return until he's able to touch him for himself and to see for himself the wounds. Also, Luke himself was a physician, which is a person whose job it is to take care of others or to take care of the people. The fourth gospel, the Gospel of John, is equated with Scorpio, or back in the ancient times, the eagle. And here there's no debate between the Ezekiel Old Testament version or the New Testament version in Revelation. In this gospel, in the Gospel of John, Jesus is seen as God, or God in the flesh, which is very much related to the spirituality of the water sign. The eagle, or Scorpio, is a water sign and is the most spiritual of the four elements. Water is the most spiritual of the four elements. Also, John himself is described as Jesus' favorite disciple, meaning that his foremost attribute is one of a spiritual authority. He's not the kind that has a job like the other apostles or the other writers often have other professions, but John himself is known as the disciple and also the favorite disciple, so his archetype is that of a disciple who's a spiritual authority. So clearly the four Gospels fit with their order in Revelation 4:7. So it's clear that Revelation 4:7 is the key to unlocking the tarot's connection to the four Gospels. The way the four Gospels and their designated signs and elements fit within the tarot's minor arcana is through the elements they represent. Matthew, or Leo, the fire sign, is the fire suit of wands. Mark, or Taurus, the earth sign, is the earth sign of pentacles. Luke, or Aquarius, the air sign, is the air sign of swords. And John, or Scorpio, the water sign, is the water sign of cups.